Over the past few months, I have been purchasing all of my wishlist plants on an app called PalmStreet. In this video, I'm going to review the app. I'm going to show you all the plants that I purchased from it, how much I paid for it, and also tell you who are my favorite sellers. Hey everyone, Pablo from Learning here, and in this video I just wanted to share with you my favorite app to purchase plants, because I know sometimes it's kind of difficult to find the one plant that you're looking for. So this app is called PalmStreet. I have been using it, and if you've seen some of my other videos, I have been sort of mentioning it every time I talk about where I'm getting my plants. So at this point, it's almost been a little bit under a year. I want to say maybe like 10 months. 11 months ever since I started purchasing plants from there. So I just wanted to show you all the plants, go all the way back to my first purchase, tell you how much I paid for it, and then tell you whether it survived or whether it died, because a bunch of them died when I was going back to the story. And I'm going to be honest, I get this weird sort of like gut feeling and gut reaction when I start talking about like money and plants. But I'm going to try to do like the best and just kind of like chill, and then me in the future editing this video is just going to add sort of like the total of how much I've spent in this app, how much money I've lost because the plants have just completely died, and then we'll try to like plant math maybe how much stuff is worth, because it's been a few months, it's bigger, and maybe it will offset some of the losses. So let's start. First of all, what is PalmStreet? PalmStreet is an app on your phone. There's a link in the description if you want to download it, if you've never heard of it, if you just want to like browse through it. I just want to disclose it is an affiliate link because they give me a credit, and you also get a credit towards your first purchase. So whenever you go into the app, you're going to find different tabs. The first one is going to be the live part, which is where you're going to get a lot of the sort of people that are selling, well, live. So it's divided in two sections. The first one is just people who are currently live, and it shows how many views or people have saved that live. And then underneath, it has a purge section. A purge section is literally what it sounds like. It's like someone uploads an entire list of plants that they have, how much they want for them, and then it has a limited time for the sale. So people go in and they can purchase each plant or one-offs from that sort of purge, and then, just go through the normal sort of like checkout process. And then the other one is the lives. In the lives, you basically get on a normal live stream. You're chatting with them, they're showing you the plans, or they're doing some auctions. So most of them do not work with a set specific sort of price always. Most of them are kind of like auctions, and then it works in two ways. One of them is they're just going to be saying a price and sort of being like, all right, $1, and then someone is like one, and they're like, all right, anyone does two, and then it just be like a normal auction. The other one is a change they made in the app, and then you just kind of swipe. So it has like a countdown, and it tells you how close it is, kind of like eBay, and then people just swipe on the button, and then eventually whomever's the last one to swipe keeps it. Sometimes they also have like a specific price, of course. They're like, oh, this one's $30, $20, who wants to take it, and stuff like that. But I find like the best deals are always in the auctions. I just didn't think that putting them like in one section made a lot of sense. So I feel like it's all about sort of like as you go through it. So my first tip that I'm going to give you whenever you're looking at lives is go into the live, go into the little box that has like the store button, and then check what plants they have already sold and for how much. That lets you know more or less what they have in stock in a way, and also what the pricing of it is. Sometimes you're going to find some plants that you're like, oh my God, this seller is selling this plant for this amount. And then you're going to be like, let me ask for another one, maybe I can get it. And other times you're going to be like, okay, this might be a little more like higher than I feel comfortable with, or it just lets you know what's in stock that night. Another thing that I recommend you do is sort of like try to hop in there like right as they go live. The seller, when they go live, they want to have a nice time, a good environment, and just get like the chat all excited, sort of like prime it. So sometimes that one first plant is a super, super really good deal. If you have one in mind, you can always ask for it, and then maybe that will be the first plant they do. Or if not, just know that that plant sometimes just go out really, really cheap. When I first started using the app, it was just plants. Most of the sellers were either established or like small people just selling sort of part of their collections. And little by little, the word spread and different sellers came. Now you'll be able to find something like crystals, reptiles, pottery. I've seen some other kind of like collectibles, and just a lot of like handcrafted sort of stuff, almost like a eBay with a live. So it has really expanded into new kind of niches. So if you are watching this and you're not just into plants, maybe you're into crystals or pottery or something like that, they might have some really cool stores there for you too. The second tab is gonna say shop, and that's literally what it sounds like. You just search whatever plant you want, or you can find whenever people are posting different listings. I personally find that the best deals are found on those lives, or maybe some of those purges. I don't find the sort of listings to be that good. Some sellers do have it, but most of them are a little bit sort of like just price normal or a little bit higher. So I definitely recommend you check out the lives over the established sort of listings. The first plant that I got from PalmStreet or Plantstory before is my strawberry shake. I paid $60 for this, and last fall that was a really good price. I know the tissue culture and just overall it has really dropped in price now, but back, a year back, $60 was really nice. Something that I do want to point out is that it literally still has the original leaf that it came with. So this leaf is turning a little yellow. This one here, those were the leaves that it came with almost a year ago. Then it also, I sort of air layered it and it created a second growth point, which has given me a little bit more of the variegation and a little bit different experience. This plant just holds so many leaves. I also had the red emerald, which is the non-variegated version of this. I gave it away because it just got like pretty big. It has gotten, I think, really, really bushy in a really nice way. I mean, look at how pretty all of the plants live. I will say this plant does get a little sticky. Look how pretty the back. So the back, you can see all of this, the redness sort of just gets this edge. Really, really pretty. The next order that I put on PalmStreet was actually a bust. So this order had a bunch of plants. When it was sent to me, I was like looking at it, the tracking, and for some reason it said that the shipping or the address was like incomplete. But I had already received the other plant, and PalmStreet uses the exact same sort of address whenever you make a purchase. So I knew, I don't know if it got damaged or something like that. It was returned to them and they just gave me a refund. Inside that order, I had purchased a Dragon's Breath Alocasia for $15. I purchased a Purple Cloak for $5, a Vitaliform from a Variegated Mother for $8, a Philodendron Glorious for $20, a Philodendron Splendid for $1, and a Colocasia Ferros Mask Corm for like $10. So as you know, or you can see by the price, I was pretty bummed out about all of it. Oh, and it also had a Quilted Dreams for $10. So I was pretty bummed out about just not getting this, but I got a refund, so I don't have any hard feelings. It was super simple. They just, clicked on it, refunded it, and it was fine. The next plant that I purchased from PalmStreet is my Alocasia Azlanii from Salad Beard Farms. And that actually made me end up purchasing a bunch of plants, but I just went to their eBay because they just did not have them listed on PalmStreet, or else I would just purchase it through there. So this has just been an incredible plant for me. It has been a great grower. It literally has some leaves for the past like 6-7 months. It's putting out a bunch of little corms. It just does not stop growing. It's beautiful. So I'm really, really happy with this purchase. And it has definitely been worth the $12 that I paid for it. In that same order, I purchased the Alocasia Platinum for also $12. That is this same plant. It has not been the fastest of growers for me, but it has multiplied a lot. So I do have a bunch of little babies going, but I do want it to get big and size up really, really nicely. I paid $12 for it, and it has definitely, gotten my money's worth, because now I have maybe like I said, 5 or 6 of them. That's pretty nice. Then I'll use this as a placeholder because this is the Alocasia chienlii Antoro Velvet starter plant when I first got it. Unfortunately, this plant completely melted. And when I tell you it melted, I mean it melted overnight. It did not enjoy getting like its root touched, and I should have known that that was my sort of my wake-up call and how difficult or just delicate this plant was going to be. And I ignored it, and I purchased it again in the next order that I made with them. And then this is a baby of that plant. So far, I think I'm getting the gist of it. As you see, it's sizing up really nicely. You can see it has this big leaf coming from the center. So I'm hoping that I have cracked the code for chienlii. But this is the first plant which is going to go into the lost category because this actual plant that I purchased, it died. The next plant that I purchased was a tissue culture. So this is when I first started to venture into the tissue culture sort of realm, and it was then to like dandy plants from Sandy Dandy. They have some of the best selection of tissue cultures that are extremely well priced, and I wanted to start experimenting with them. And what I did was purchase a 5-pack of Philodendron Billietiae for $25. I did not realize that it was going to get so big and keep multiplying. I ended up getting all of the plants to stay. I have given away a couple of them. I have basically used it to like trade when I have gone to other trades. And yeah, it is not a difficult plant. It was definitely a great first plant to try out as my first tissue culture. And then at that point, I really wanted to try a Philodendron Serpens. So I also purchased a 5-pack of them. And this is a specimen that still remains with us from it. Actually, most of them just struggle to size up a lot. It has not been able to size up like this until the past few months. They had to go into a tub container, 100% humidity, in order for the plant to be able to size up from the tissue culture. So I will say this was one of the most difficult tissue cultures that I got. But at that point, I did not know it. I paid $24 for it. And I still have a bunch. Every time I try to trade it and I tell people, oh, it's a Philodendron Serpens, they are all like, no. I'm like, no, 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 just get it. It's fine. I have many, like, let's just trade for whatever. And they're like, no, I've heard that it's a nightmare. And I'm like, well, it was a nightmare to size up, but so far it has not been too bad to just kind of keep in the container. So I'm still not sure how I feel about Serpens, but I have a bunch if you want to trade or something. The next thing I purchased was a Monstera Tycon for $26. $26. This was a tissue culture as well, and it was in a flask, so it was like medium sort of size for tissue culture. It wasn't like a baby. I just really liked the pattern, and it was just a good deal. At that point, I had another one, but it was just not looking too sexy. So I decided to get a new one, and so far this plant has been pretty great. I find it that the bigger that Monsteras get, the slower they are to push out new leaves. So this leaf was the last one, and it's been like a month-ish, and I can see the new one kind of forming. So yeah, I love this Monstera Thai. I also have my other one, but this is the one that I got from PalmStreet. The next one was also still with Sandy Dandy plants. This was a 3-node pack that came with that order. It was added for like $15.99, $16. I thought just doing a $5 sort of add-on per plant or per node was interesting because they had a really big collection of like rare plants. Unfortunately, I only received 2 nodes. One of them, I think it was maybe like a Philodendron White Princess tricolor, because it was kind of looking like that, but ended up just rotting away. And then the other note that I got, it ended up being this Syngonium, and it turned out to be the Syngonium Mottled Mojito. If you don't know, because you know, if you're not too familiar with my collection, I actually own a few Syngoniums, but it's never by choice. It's more like I just end up with them, or as like as a really cheap thing. And I still don't know how I feel about them. I know they need to be on moss poles. Need to be climbing, or else they get kind of ugly. But I'm still not sure what I'm gonna do with it. So out of that note pack, I will consider most of it to be a bust. I'm just gonna put $5 on the real category and a loss of 10 or 11, just because I had 2 notes and one of them just went away. And then the last plant that I got from that order is this Jose Buono. This one was purchased for $36, and it also came as a flask. So in the past year has just sized up really nicely. If you know anything about Jose Buono, is that it gets really big really fast. So this one has lived up to its name, but it's still tamed and controlled with its moss pole. Something that you should know about, I will just continue to spread the word about Jose Buono is that its variegation, while really pretty and really white when it comes out, it will fade into green. As you see, most of the older leaves have this kind of like light green. All of that used to be white. So just beware of that. It is putting out a few babies down here. You see it has like 2 other little ones As usual, my plant is in semi-hydro, and you can see all of the roots. It has not been too difficult to keep happy, and you can see actually it's one of those moss poles that has like a fuzzy. No, wait. It has some actual moss growing on it, so I think this one is pretty cool. I think I'm going to be in trouble soon. So what I might just do is end up trading like the big version of it and then just keep the little baby. So yeah, so this one I paid 36 bucks as a tissue culture, and it has been a great plant. So the next order that I placed was with the Rare Plant Fairy, who are, and they'll be mentioned as one of my favorite sellers when it comes down to rare plants or genetics, or if you want to just guarantee some kind of high variegation, they are the ones to go to. It's just they're a little bit more expensive, but they have the genetics, so you need to sort of like decide what you want. From them, I got the following plants. The first one, and the one that has been obsessed, I've been obsessed with, has been the Philodendron Orange Princess. This one I paid $65 for it, and it was the tiny little flask that I ended up letting it grow a little bit. I opened it, and you have basically, you can go see some shorts in the channel about like the entire progress. Everything was fun and games until one leaf decided to do a full sort of a moon variegation, and I thought that was going to be the end of this plant. So gave out a little tiny little baby. See if we can see it right there. That looks just like the normal orange princess. So even though the main mother has sort of failed and become something else, or just orange, almost like an orange prince, this little baby's here. So yeah, I love this plant. I paid $65 for it. I think it's worth more, and if anything, now I have a little baby that I could resell for like 50 bucks or something. The next plant that I got from the Rare Plant Fairy on Palm Street was my Philodendron El Choco Rojo. This plant was one of those that was on everybody like wish list when the pandemic was at its full so rage. Some of the reasons why people hated this plant is because it has a very, very small internodal space. So wait. So it's really, really difficult to propagate by cutting, just because it might rot, or you just need to leave big chunks with multiple nodes in order to try to activate one of them. So I think this plant was just really difficult to multiply, and I think that's why sellers kind of stopped doing it. And then buyers, once they started buying it, they realized that this is not the easiest plant to size up. Actually, I think sizing it up is one of the most difficult parts of it. I have been trying to have it attached to the moss pole a lot more, and have not been super successful at it. The biggest leaf so far that I have been able to accomplish, I guess, is like this one or something like that, which is like the size of my hand. And then this latest one is looking a little smaller. Not gonna lie. Oh shit, it ripped. Oh, that's sad. I paid $30 for this plant, and I think it has been really, really worth every single dollar. It might not be the easiest plant. I only have one. It has not multiplied, and I don't think it will, but it was definitely worth 30 bucks. Up next is my Philodendron Splendid that I also paid $30, and is also from the Rare Plant Fairy. This plant ended up breaking when I was adding a extension to the moss pole a couple months back. It ended up breaking right here. Maybe see it. There you go. So what happened with this, it just was falling. I grabbed it and then it snapped, and it was really sad. But it ended up growing two heads. One of them ended up giving me leaves back to the same size as before. And then the other one is giving a little bit of like smaller size leaves. But honestly, I think it just makes it fuller. So it looks really, really nice. This plant has been my favorite climbing philodendron to own. And if I had to recommend one, probably for you watching, if you tell me what plant do you recommend on a moss pole, I would say Philodendron Splendid is at the top of that list. It is beautiful to look at. It's beautiful when it's like unfurling. It has this like yellowish golden brown color, almost like a Melanochrysum. And also it is, I think, sturdy. It survives with a humidity that is more room temperature than others, and it multiplies and grows really, really fast. Up next is my Philodendron Glorious. This one I paid $25 for it. and it was also from the Rare Plant Fairy. This is its latest leaf, and you can see how big it has gotten. I mean, this is the one of the climbing philodendrons that I have that has been the fastest to size up. So if you want a plant that will size up really, really fast and is an aggressive grower, I would say definitely that Glorious is that plant for you. I ended up paying $25 for it, and I think it's definitely been worth it. Up next is my Philodendron Mamei Rojo. This was an add-on on the Rare Plant Fairy for $15. If you saw my video about the crawling philodendrons, you know what I think of them, you know I do not like this plant, mostly because it decided to go vertical on me for whatever reason, and it has just gotten really, really messy when it comes down to the size. Why is this one Rojo? Is because it has that red sort of part at the top of its petiole. Uh, Up next is my Philodendron Melanochrysum, which I am not going to push up closer. I might just put a video. You can see it right here in all its glory. I cannot even reach the top. This is like a 9-foot ceiling. So I'm assuming it's close to like 8.5. I am air layering it starting at this point, and my goal is to put it and basically move the entire part back down because this is kind of empty. I paid 15. I paid $15 for that plant, and while Melanochrysum is not the easiest of climbing philodendron, for $15, I think it's kind of worth it. Also, it was just kind of part of a bundle. I was just going through sort of that, you know, when you purchase a bunch of stuff at the same time and you're just like, more! It's like that sheen sort of like rush that you get, that. Then the next one that I purchased was from a different seller this time, and it was the Blue Oil Fern Microsorum thailandicum. The whole reason is a few people were putting this on like their wish list, and then it just blew up. And I was also one of them. Then I was like, you know what? This looks amazing. And the thing is, for $30, I think this plant has been worth it. What you don't know, if out of all the leaves that you see, two of them are still the ones that it came with, and it has only grown 1, 2, and a baby one. This has to be one of the slowest growing, I don't know if ferns are just going to be really varied on its growth rate, but it has to be one of the slowest growing plants that I own. Personally, I think it's doing fine. I think it's moving. I see a bunch of the little sort of like twirly new leaves sort of like popping up, and you know, it's kind of moist. It's just a difficult plant. But for $30, I would definitely buy this all over again. The next plant is Philodendron Spiritus Sancti. So this was a plant that everybody wanted, and they were so going, you know, thousands of dollars during the pandemic. Even before that, it was just rare. But it ended up hitting tissue culture. They ended up getting some variegated ones, and it dropped a lot in price. This was actually $40 for one tissue culture that I had the two of these plants kind of growing together. And what ended up happening was an accident. I just swiped trying to like read the comments and ended up betting on it and winning it. But then I was like, instead of asking for a refund, I was like, you know what? I don't mind owning this plant. It's kind of cool. I wanted it anyway. And for $40, it's kind of like 20 each. It was kind of worth it. So I would definitely pay 20 bucks again for this. It's also a slow grower. It's not the fastest to it, but it sizes up fairly, really nicely. Once it begins to size up, it's really pretty, and I think it's kind of like a lower light requirement. So I recommend, if you can find this for $20, I would buy one. So the next few plants actually ended up being a complete bust. That order I got from Sandy Dandy, you know, the ones that I get out of the tissue culture. And I don't know, I think I was just writing some of that sort of like plant high whenever you buy a plant you really want, and then you're sort of like buying another one, because you're like, I already paid for shipping, I might as well just pay for another plant because I'm not going to pay for shipping again, you know, next week. So I ended up getting a Tycon TC for $6. I was like, for $6, I'll take a Tycon. That one ended up not working out, and it just completely died. It just rotted away almost near instant. So that one goes in the lost category. The next one is a tissue culture Bam Bam, the variegated pink bambino. This one, I was really excited. It was in a bag, the tissue culture, so I was not able to see exactly how much variegation was there until I got it. And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh damn, this plant has like zero green. It has a tiny little bit of green in some of the offshoots that it was having. So I was like, maybe one of them will pull through. It did not. That plant melted within a few days. And then the little ones that were green stayed there trying to fight, but ended up just being a complete bust. So I ended up paying $38 for that plant, and that is 100% a loss. The next one was a tissue culture bingo. So something you're going to realize if you're using PalmStreet is that certain sellers do some kind of auction, right? And then they also have a more gamble, luck, lottery kind of situation. Some of them are going to sell basically a ticket and then you roll it, spin the wheel, whatever you land is what you get. Other ones are having like a bingo sheet. So whatever number you get is the plant depending on where it's located. So I thought it would be fun to participate. Ended up being $45. I was trying to get a Monstera Maryland. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a yellowish variegation. And I ended up actually getting this. You do not know what you win until you receive your shipment, so you don't cancel and refund and all that stuff. So this ended up being a Homalomina rubescens variegated. I guess it's like called like Pink Splash or something like that. This has to be one of the most underwhelming plants that I own. I mean, I was excited about, I did not own any Homalomina, and I really wanted to get the, or I still do, I want to get the pink diamond. Um, and then this came and I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. But honestly, it has not been easy. It has not sized up the most. It has been a little delicate, if I'm being honest. So for $45, I'm not sure if I would buy this again. I know that it has two plants and that puts it at like $22 each. I guess I would pay $22 for it, but if I knew what it was ahead of time, I probably wouldn't buy it because I've seen all of these specimens online and this plant is just kind of underwhelming in my opinion. In that same order, I purchased a poop, which means that it's contaminated with some mold, and I cleaned, and the poop was a Philodendron Orange marmalade. It has been not too bad. It has been really pretty. It has just been really slow to size up. So I've seen some orange marmalade, like they go on moss balls. It's not a self-heading one, but this one has just been a slower grower. But both of them survived. There are 2 or 3 plants in this container. So yeah, for $8, I would definitely recommend. I would buy this all over again. The next one is just a bummer. That is my Philodendron Billietiae variegated. I ended up being able to win this for $55, which was a really good deal and would be if it would have survived. At the beginning, it was putting out some leaves that were variegated and it was very slow, but it was putting out new growth. What I think happened was the container that I put it in might have been a little too big to start off. I probably would have done like a smaller plug hindsight. Everything else goes into a bigger pot because I don't want to be retouching the roots too much. But I think it ended up getting some crown rot whenever some of the condensation from the dome fell on it. And I think it was so small, I didn't catch it. And then it started to just rot from the crown down. So unfortunately, that one goes fully into the lost category, but I would love to have a Philodendron Billietiae variegated. In that same order, I also purchased a Poop Red Anderson for $4, and I ended up getting more plants that I know what to do with. So it basically looked kind of like this. They were babies whenever it came out of the tissue culture bag. And now they look something like this. It ended up multiplying. I ended up getting the 5. That was the original 5 in the bag. So, 5 for $4. But then all of them, whenever I pulled them out of the container, ended up having all like other kind of little baby shoots, kind of like tissue culture plants just do that. And I ended up being able to get around 12 plants total. So right now I have a bunch of Red Andersons. Because of them, I paid $4 total. So there's like a bunch here, this one here, there's this one here. That one is really cool. And then there's one that has really, really low variegation and it puts out this kind of reddish variegation that's kind of weird. But yeah, for $4, I would definitely buy a Red Anderson. And if you're near me in a swap, I'll probably gift you one of them. The next one is going to be the Syngonium variegated milk confetti. This was $3 as a poop, which is literally the only reason I got it. Because I was already getting the, the shipment with the the Red Anderson, with the Homalomina, with all of the other cool tissue cultures, and I was already like running the high, and I was like, for $3, throw it in. Um, Again, I don't care much for Syngoniums. This one ended up, I was hoping that since it was tissue culture, it would have like a really high variegation. It does not. The pink is pretty scarce. And then it ended up also multiplying into a bunch of little plants, as you see right here. And I've been keeping them, trying to see if I end up just striking with one plant that is really cool and pretty. But so far, all of them are doing the exact same thing, which is that kind of like middle of the road variegation. So yeah, I don't care much about this plant, but for $3, I will pay it. The next one is also a complete loss, and that is my Philodendron Giganteum Variegated. I ended up paying $14 for it, and unfortunately, I think it had too high of a variegation, and it just was putting out leaves that were really, really yellow with almost no green, and then it just kind of melted. So $14 go right to the loss. The next one is Whipple Way. So Whipple Way ended up, it's right here. As you can see, let's see, it's still a little baby. And the main reason was I left it in the tissue culture container for a while. I put it out, and I think the container that I put it in was too big again for it. Everything was fine. It was growing, and then it stopped growing. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And when I touched it, it literally, I pulled it off without any roots whatsoever. So what I ended up doing is putting it in like a dome, and I put it into this tiny, tiny container with some moss and perlite and 100% humidity, and then just prayed, and it ended up just growing some roots from like the stem. So it's been able to survive. It has just taken a long time to size up. Honestly, I feel like the variegation is really high, so I don't know if that's just Whipple Ways. It's supposed to be the pinky one, the pinkish one. This is just not getting enough light, I suppose. But I'm just trying to take it easy because of all the loss of roots. I paid $37 for this. I think now you can probably get a bigger, more established plug of Whipple Way around 40 bucks, 30 bucks. So I've had this for a year. I don't think I would pay it again if I knew how long it took me to size it up, but I would pay it for established plants. Now, the next one is going to be a struggle because it comes with a full story that then I do not learn my lesson and make again. This is my tissue culture caramel marble variegated, and I purchased it for $95. At this point, that was like the most expensive purchase that I made on PalmStreet. So I was really excited for it. It came, it had great variegation. I left it in the container for it to sort of adapt. I did not want to put it into shock. I think I took time, and then I was looking at it and I realized that the leaves that it was putting out still in the tissue culture container were not variegated. Like it put out 3 leaves in a row, and I was like, oh no, this is trouble. So I ended up taking the plant out. I chopped it, the tissue culture, tiny little plant I chopped. This that you see right here ends up being the top. So this would have been the top of the plant had I not done anything for it, just kind of kept it going. This would now, in my book, would be considered a Pluto. And I don't think Plutos go for much. So this plant would initially have lost all of its value in my book, from $95 for the caramel marble to a Pluto, which I would pay maybe like $20, $15 for something like this. That was a big loss. Luckily, the stem of the plant ended up putting out a bunch of growth. I'm putting some videos right now. And out of those plants, some of them ended up coming out fully variegated. So it just happened that the variegation wasn't that node, and it just came out fully yellow. So it did not do anything. Another one was one of these, which ended up basically becoming a non-variegated one. It had variegation, and then it kind of lost it while it sized up. And to me, I think, unless somehow it just pops out of no one, this would also be a Pluto, and I would pay maybe like 10 bucks top for it. Luckily for me, one of them ended up getting a stroke of like luck, and you can see it's still in the container even though it's been so many months since I purchased it, because I'm just trying to really set it up for like success. And this is the one last standing little baby that I had at that point. It was so small, I was like, yeah, it's not making it. But it ended up making it, and I separated it into its own container. As you can see here, And there it is. I mean, it's trying. It's putting out a new leaf. It's sizing up fairly okay. Once it gets bigger, once it starts to get the corrugated edges and sort of like the Pluto shape, it sizes up a lot easier. So I'm really excited because I think this plant is worth the $95 or whatever, because it's now established, and then hopefully it does not revert. If not, I'm gonna chop it. But at least I know that it has, 5, 7 leaves that are variegated, and that just gives me more stem to work with and more nodes to work with. But I have really high hopes for this plant. I think it's going to make it. So I will consider this to be $95, and the 2 Plutos are just like bonus. All it took was time, a lot of patience, and a lot of work, because I had to cut this with like tweezers, in order to get the tissue culture to like multiply. Then again, from Sandy Dandy, as you see, I just love purchasing from them because they have such great deals for different plants, especially if you're willing to do some kind of like variegated rare plant as a poo, so it's contaminated and you have like lower odds, like that Jupii will die. It is what it is. But sometimes you have other deals that strike. So the next one is a poo Alocasia sinuata variegated that I paid $9. That was actually really promising, and it was looking like the nodes were going to be activated, and then unfortunately it just rotted and it did not work out. So it was $9 that went directly into the loss. Then the other one was the Dragon Scale Variegated. So this was again a poo. It was a contaminated. It was basically just a tiny little stump with nothing in it. I ended up paying $26, and it was just the potential of a variegated Dragon Scale. Fortunately for me, I'm able to take care of those plants well enough, and I was able to take care of it to the point of sizing. So that is this same $26 variegated dragon scale. Here you can see it in all of its glory. This leaf. I was kind of worried when it gave me this kind of completely white, because it's not right when it's that white. Um, and then this was the last one, which became green again, and it's starting to get that dragon scale kind of like look with it. So I'm glad to know that it's not just going to die with all the variegation. And for $26, I would 1000% buy this again, and I did, as you see in a few purchases. I would consider this plant right now to be worth, I don't know, maybe like $90, or something along those lines, just because it's sizing up really nicely. It has a very nice variegation, and it's sitting completely in pond. I'm hoping to not have to disturb any of it anytime soon. So hopefully it gets big and just great. Then I got also a poo variegated Friedek, an Alocasia. That was for $9, and that completely went into a loss. That plant did not make it, so that is a $9 loss. But then I think what happened in this live, I'm going to be honest, this is why you need to be checking out the same people and the same lives different times. There were not enough people during that live competing against me for those variegated alocasias that were contaminated. So I was able to smoke all these people for like nothing. So I also got another poo alocasia dragon scale variegated for $15. So in my head, I was like, okay, so I'm paying 26 for the other one and 15 for this one. I was like, okay, that's like 40. So I'm gonna get like 2 plants, and then it's like $20 each, and it'll be great. So as you know, the other one grew big and it was, really nice. But this one that I got for $15 ended up coming just with like a really, really long kind of stem. I just placed it sideways on some fluval stratum and prayed. And I was like, please let the activation of the nodes begin. I ended up getting super lucky. So let me show you what that $15 Alocasia variegated turned into. The first one is right here, ended up activating a node, which turned into this little plant. I recently moved it from the fluval stratum into a perlite and sphagnum moss, mostly because I want to be able to sell it or trade it. And most people are not ready to take a semi-hydro, in pond, as likely as they are to take a moss and perlite. That's one of them. Super cool. The last one had a half moon. Again, keep in mind that I paid $15 for what you're about to see. So this one is the first. This one is the second one. It just put out this new leaf last, and I think it's the prettiest. Look at that. How pretty is that? Little one, and then a little half moon. This one was also basically the container that I had them in initially. And when I was kind of like separating it, this plant just had the biggest root system established in here. And I was like, all right, you can stay there. I'm just going to remove everything else. So yeah, this one still the same $15. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I paid $7.50 for each of those two variegated ones. This is the third one that I decided to put into a container with the pond because I would just want it to grow in here and not be moved too much. So the last one that it put out was really, really white, but then it put out something that is looking a little more like minty or, like almost like an urea. Again, I don't really understand how they separate the urea from the white ones, the albos in tissue culture. So yeah, same $15. I put it in here. So far, it's doing okay. I don't see too much new growth, but the leaves are, looking good, and that's what matters. So right now, those plants, I consider them to be $5 each. And the last one that is still standing is this one. This one, I will say, has the lowest variegation of them all, except I thought it was going to be higher because it would look promising here. And also this other one was kind of nice. But we'll see. You never know. Sometimes it just does a full white one after this. This one is also on perlite. So we consider now this plants to be like $4 each, to be honest. And I ended up getting the little stem where all this came from. It had not died. It was still kind of like hard. And I just put it into a prop box. So who knows? Maybe a new one will grow from that. Up next, I purchased a tissue culture. This was a completely different shipment than the other. A few months had passed. This one I purchased a mystery Alocasia for $17. I was thinking it was going to be potentially a another variegated Vaginda or something like that. That one ended up dying. So that is $17 that one just did not make it. And then I really wanted to have the variegated Alocasia sinuata. And since I had such success with the other one, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. So I ended up buying this flask with Alocasia sinuata for $115. And in it, you could see 3 or like 2, 3 kind of growth points. So I got it. It looked really healthy. I ended up putting it in a container with fluval stratum and kind of just spraying. And then little by little, it ended up kind of growing into bigger plants. I ended up moving them in the container. And this is what they look like right now. Ooh, these ones are seal babies, and it's been difficult to size up, but here's one. This is the variegated sinuata. It looks like this little baby, and then it has this one, which is pretty lime green at the moment, so we'll see what happens with it. So that's one. So that's one. So I would consider this one right now to be worth 100 or so that's one. So I consider this one right now to be $115 because if everything else dies and this is the only one, that's how much I kind of paid for it. This is the second one that grew from that same flask that was $115. Unfortunately, it has been pretty white. So as you see right there, the first leaf that it had ended up getting this greenish kind of color, almost like a minty. But then the last one that it put out is fully white again. So I'm not sure. 50-50 this plant dies. I'm just going to keep it in high humidity and then just hope that I hope the variegation ends up being minty, kind of like the Jose Buono or something like that. If not, this plant is just going to die. But right now, I consider both of those plants to be worth $62. This is the other one that came out. This one of those leaves was almost fully white, and then it ended up getting a really nice kind of green on it, as you see there. And then the last one that it put out, though, it's looking a little white. So not sure if this one's gonna make it, to be honest, because I'm just gonna hope that it puts out more green enough to sustain it and see what happens. So right now I consider each of these plants to be worth $40. This one is the fourth one that came out of that flask. It's looking promising because it has a lot of green in it. It's just sitting in fluval stratum and some perlite, and it does seem to be pushing out a new leaf sitting on the bottom of some leca, and then it's sitting on 100% humidity. I'm hoping at least a couple of these plants survive so we can get some nice footage of them. And then the fifth, and I'm not sure if last, is gonna be this one. Also came out fully white, and as you see, is in the process of melting. As Alocasias do, they kind of just turn translucent and die. But something that is giving me the slightest bit of hope is that this last plant that it put out, come on, focus. This last leaf that it put out, look how pretty it is. It has enough green that I think can survive, and I see enough green on that petiole to maybe make it. So we'll see if it survives the melt of the leaf. But that is 5 plants that came from that flask. So I would consider each to be around like $22, $23. So overall, while 115 is a lot of money for an alocasia, for 5 variegated sinuatas, I feel like it was worth it. And so far, all of them are doing okay. Even if I got some of them to be fully variegated, they had not completely died, so there's a sliver of hope. The next one is a Homalomina Pink Diamond node. Unfortunately, I paid $30.88 for whatever reason. I ended up not getting one quick enough. So I purchased it, and the seller, Sandy Plants, ended up having some bunch of, I think, events or something like that. So they delayed the shipment a few weeks. And by the time I got this node, it was like completely bone dry. So I ended up not sort of keeping it. They'll just send me a new one next time I put an order. I haven't cashed in on that sort of IOU kind of situation. So I don't consider this to be a loss because they told me, and I believe them, they'll send me another one next time I place an order with them. Now, remember when I said that I did not learn my lesson, like with the marble, the caramel marble, variegated, and then I was like, oh, let me pay less, so I buy a tissue culture and then deal with some of the potential sort of consequences. That one, remember, it reverted. I had to chop it, and then everything that came out was a mess. Eventually, one of them, I got really lucky, and it seemed to be variegated. So I purchased a variegated Billietiae for 151, and it came with some really nice variegation, as you see down here. um, Actually, this one's a little difficult to put to the camera, so I'll just put some close-up footage. So it ended up coming with some really cool variegation that I was really excited because it had this creaminess, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a banger. And then it put out 1 leaf, 2 leaf, 3 leaf that were completely green, yellowy, and I wasn't sure if it was like it was getting too much like light or if it was gonna like burn in later. I wasn't really sure how this variegation shows. Like, is it similar to the Monstera Adansonii aurea that burns in after a while, or is it there at the beginning? Um, I'm not sure. I ended up chopping the head. This one that you see is the head original, and I don't think it honestly does not look that it has any variegation on it. So I cut it, and then it activated 3 nodes. The first one that it activated all the way up is already putting on a leaf. It has put out 2 leaves, and honestly, neither one of them seem variegated to me. The other one that it activated the growth point from underneath that has put out 2 leaves fully, and I'm going to be honest, also does not look variegated to me. And then the third one down here, it has 1 leaf and it has a speckle like in the middle. So I'm not really sure about that one. My current plan with this is to wait for the 2 top ones to sort of grow a little bit, and then I'm gonna pluck them out because they're growing some roots, and then I'm just gonna separate them, and that will give enough energy to the 1 node that I activated underneath to maybe push out a couple new leaves and see what's happening. If that one ends up being non-variegated as well, and I end up with like 4 normal Billietiae, my only other choice, I guess, is to do another cut into the original tissue culture stem and then hope that it activates some kind of cell somewhere there that turn out. But honestly, that would just be my last sort of ditch effort to try to get some variegation out of this plant. So as of right now, I would consider the $151 to be a loss towards me because I don't think I'm gonna get a variegated version out of this. And as you see, I have a bunch of the other non-variegated ones that I had already purchased, and Billietiaes are not that difficult or expensive anymore. Then up next is a plant that I don't really talk a lot about because I have recently gotten it, and I just put it somewhere that I think it liked and it's doing really well, and I don't have a lot of tips about it. But this is the Variegated Birds Nest Fern star, and as you can see, it's so pretty. I love the white that it has, the stripes. It comes out almost translucent and then it begins to get green stripes on it. It comes out from the bottom. If you know anything about bird's nest fern, is that it gets massive, 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 massive. But as we have established, ferns are slower growers, and this one indoors is just not gonna get that big. I paid $14.50 for it, and I think it's worth every cent because it's super cool. Up next is an Alocasia that it took me a long time to find, and when I did, I ended up with a bucket. So now I have literally like 25 of them. So this is Alocasia Reversa, and this is one that I transplanted into this like a container. I have some other ones that are in pond. I have some other ones that are just in like perlite and moss, and I have some that are just in like soilless arid mix. I'm just sort of experimenting with them, see what they like, because I have so many of them. I paid $26 for it, and honestly, at this point, I would consider each plant to be like $1, just because they came with so many of them. Now we're getting close to the finish. So the other one is Alocasia scalprum. I paid $13 for it. It has taken a little bit to get used to after coming, and this is the first true sort of leaf that comes out in my care, and I think it's beautiful. So far, it seems to be pointing up towards the light. It's getting this purple sort of blush underneath that some of the other leaves don't have. And I'm really excited to have gotten this plant for $13.80. And it came with also a couple of other babies. So I think there's 3 plants here. So I think I paid around like maybe $4 or $5 for each of these. Next one is Alocasia Green Shield Clipiolata. This plant is not expensive. It was $12.50, but it's kind of hard to come by. Not everybody has it in their collection, and it's kind of hard to find a seller that has it. Something that I am noticing compared to Cuprea is that it's a lot thinner. Like it's not as thick as the other one, but it does have the same kind of glossiness, the shininess that it has on the new leaves. So yeah, I'm so excited to have gotten this for $12, and I would definitely recommend it if you can find one. The next one is Colocasia ferus mask. If you remember at the beginning, one of the orders that I had this plant in it, but it ended up not working out. So I got this plant when I saw it again. It has not been easy for me. I don't know. Yeah, it's not just not loving me. The leaves kind of like get crunchy, and then I feel like it. If I put too much water, then it kind of looks like it has kind of like root rot, and then if I put less water, it looks. I have not quite found how this plant likes it, so I'm hoping that I do, because when it gets big, it's so cool, and I really want that. I paid $12. I paid $14 for it. So far, I don't feel like it's been worth it, but I'm gonna keep at it because it has not died. So I still think there's a lot of hope. Up next is Alocasia Loco, which I purchased for $12.50. This plant has not been the easiest. I don't know why it's not liking me. It kind of, when I had it in a humidity dome, it seemed not happy. When I took it out, it lost all the leaves. So I'm not really sure why. I'm not surprised because those Amazonica or any of those like just hate me. Um, so I have it. I paid for $12. Sure, it's worth $12. But I don't think it's gonna make it. At least not if it keeps doing the games that it's playing right now. This other plant is one that I honestly just purchased because I just realized that it was a great deal. This plant was a Syngonium pink rolly, and I paid $17.50 for it. And when you go online and you look it up, people are paying like $200-300 for it, or a little bit more for established plants. I have a few rooting just to trade, because if it has any value for people, I think it'd be great to just have multiple of them. I paid $17, and it's definitely been worth it just because of the value that it has outside of that one seller, which is part of my top few. So this one is a really cool plant, probably my favorite Syngonium, just because I don't care for the other 2 that I have. And the last plant that I have purchased from PalmStreet is going to be my Alocasia Snow, or Odora Batik Variegated. So far, this plant is doing really well in perlite and fluval stratum. It's sizing up really well, so I'm really excited to have it. I think it looks really pretty. I have seen it look really, really nice. And it could be one of those outdoor alocasia that look really good indoor until it gets a little. So PalmStreet also comes with a social feature to it, basically almost like a social media. Actually, at the beginning, I thought that that's what PalmStreet was before I realized that it was a live selling kind of app. I thought it was more of a ID your plant, share your collection type of things. But I will say that out of all the features and segments of this app, this is the one that lacks the most. So when you go into your profile, you can share what plants are in your collection. But honestly, this process is really frustrating. You can add a plant and then it forces you to do like where it is, how you can add a plant, but then it kind of forces you to tell you like where it is, how often you're watering it, and it makes you give them these details, and then it's telling you all the time that this plant needs to be watered, and you're like, shut up. And there's no way, I have not found, to turn that off. Also, whenever you upload a plant, it asks you to put like the name, and you type the name, but then the system auto classifies based on the name, and it has the worst AI ever. This thing cannot put together like the same plant with the same name if one is capitalized and one is not. Like, it sucks. So if you go into my profile and you click in any of the plants, all of them are miscategorized, and that makes this entire experience be so frustrating that I personally don't enjoy sharing all my plants in it. Like, if you want to see all my collection, go there because I post all of them. But I don't post as much as I would like to because the experience is just awful. So you need to categorize like what is the reason for like the picture. It usually doesn't work. You cannot edit the scientific sort of classification that it is. Whenever you go into the profile of a plant and underneath it says like related people who own this, always completely wrong. It shows completely weird plants. So the entire social aspect of this, I think it's really lackluster. I think they really need to focus on making that better. The DM feature is okay. I personally emailed and also sent a DM to the people that I understand are behind PalmStreet. They was not replied. I was basically trying to ask, well, telling them that I was going to make this video and asking some questions about if what they wanted to improve. Some of my criticisms, I wanted to know if it's something that they are aware of and they're working on fixing. It's just they're focusing on like the sales experience first. Unfortunately, I have not found them to be very good at communicating, at least not with me. Maybe I'm not important enough, but I think that that could be something that they can improve. I have not gotten responses through the app. So that has also been a little bit frustrating. I think the experience must be different with the sellers. I cannot tell you what it's like on their end. From my end, it feels like the sellers sometimes struggle with some of the shortcomings technologically, but at the same time, some other times I have seen them being like, oh, let me call or this person, admin, fix this. And then it gets fixed while the live is happening. So that makes me feel like, all right, someone is listening to this. So I would love for this application to have a lot better social features. I would love for this to become like a plant social media, because I think the blocks are there and clearly the intent is there, but the user experience is just so not anywhere where it should be, that it makes sharing your collection and using this as a social media not worth it. Like, for example, I post my shorts on YouTube, on Instagram, and on TikTok, and the exact same short about a plant I could just upload on PalmStreet. But the experience of uploading those shorts, it's like a video, it's also not smooth or good enough. So I tend to not post the exact same short about a plant that I post across the other ones. I tend to not post it there because I just don't enjoy the experience. All right, so this is my favorite part, and this is when it comes down to the sellers. So I have favorite sellers depending on what I'm looking to buy. Again, there's so many sellers out there. Everybody has their style. Everybody has their different things. This is not meant to be like for everything. It's just my personal. In order for you to be in this list, it means that I have ordered from you at least twice, because sometimes I realize that the first time you order from someone might not be the best or the complete experience, right? Maybe it went really bad or maybe it went really well. And then the second time around is when I think you are able to get like a better feel. So even though I have lost plants because of the poo component or just tissue culture, my favorite seller when it comes down to tissue culture plants is Sandy Dandy or Sandy plants. They are hands down the ones that have the best collection. It has the best genetics. It has the best sort of items. It's almost like she's getting them like hot off the presses from the Thai labs, because I believe that she actually is. She's great. She has a lot of friends that have really good collections with a lot of good genetics, and she's able to provide that for us for really affordable price. So when it comes down to anything tissue culture, Sandy Dandy is definitely my go-to. Then when it comes down to plugs or like starter plants, my favorite one has to be one that I found recently over the past few months. They started doing it. They're called the Greenscape, and they have just been so sort of and it has just been so mind blowing the amount of plants that they sell. When you go into their profile, they have like 400, 500 plants listed. They had all of the alocasias that I was missing. They had them there as plugs for like really like 12, 13 bucks. They're the ones that I got the Rolly pink Syngonium from. And I think they just have a great selection at a great price. They get on the live all the time. It's not really salesy. You basically just ask for a plant that is in the listing and he'll show it to you. He does not try to like upsell you or sort of like, oh, you want it, you want it. Like, it's really chill. So I enjoy sometimes just going to their lives and just learning a little bit about the plants that they have in their collection. Then when it comes down to rare plants that I absolutely love when it comes down to genetics, but the pricing tends to be a little higher, is definitely the Rare Plant Fairy. Also, special shout out to Sprout and Proud, because they have a great selection of plants. They're super nice and their lives are always fun to attend. And also Lush Tropics, who are local here in South Florida, and I love just seeing them embracing new technology and just being out there sharing their plants with us. So there you have it. These are all the plants that I purchased from PalmStreet, what I think of it, what has been my experience, and how much money I spent. So what do you think? How do you compare? Have you been using PalmStreet? How much money are you spending on it a month? Come on, this is a safe space. Share it with me. I'm being super honest with you. I don't know how much stuff is worth once it gets bigger. It kind of becomes really subjective, but at least we objectively know how much we paid for them and whether or not they're alive or if they got better. So let me know down below, what has been your experience? Who are your favorite sellers? Who are someone who I should be purchasing from? I know you're buying from different people, so comment down below who is your favorite seller and who should I buy from next. Thank you so much for watching, and YouTube thinks that this video should be the next one for you to watch.